Welcome to the SSVF Training Addendum. Prior to taking this course, you should have viewed the HMIS Introductory Series and the Case Management Series. This SSVF training will only cover information that is unique to SSVF, not the entire workflow in detail. If you have any questions about the basic workflows, please refer to the Introductory and Case Management Training Series. Let's begin. So currently we're on the Service Point homepage, and we want to enter our client into our SSVF project. So we'll want to make sure we're going to enter the correct enter data as and backdate mode as applicable to your project. So I'll click on enter data as. I'm going to enter my SSVF project. And I'm also going to backdate to July 1st of last year, just so that we have some information or some room to make some interim updates along the way. So I'll set my backdate, and my bar turns yellow up top. So let's go to my client, and I pre-made a client here, which is client number 5, and have the information here. Now, if you have any questions about creating a client or finding a client in HMIS, you'll want to refer to the HMIS Introductory Series, which will cover that in detail. But for the purposes of the SSVF training, we're simply going to cover the elements that are specific to SSVF. Now, before we move on to the next tabs here, there are a couple items we just want to touch on here. So, for veterans projects for SSVF, a full name is required. Partial names and partial names are not really acceptable for veteran projects. Additionally, whereas other projects may have an incomplete or partial social security number, in veterans projects, the veteran must have their entire social security number recorded. This is because the social security number is used to verify veteran status. Additionally, for veterans, they must be a veteran to be part of an SSVF project. So let's jump to the Households tab. So we would just move from left to right. A household is pre-made in this situation, just for the sake of expediency. And we'll go to the ROI tab. And it looks like we don't have release information. Now, the ROI tab is specific to balance of state users. Balance of state users must add a release of information electronically, otherwise the data for their clients will not be recorded. You also want to make sure that you have the entire household selected as well. Or when I say not recorded, the information for the clients will be recorded, but the information will not be shared with other projects in HMIS. So it's very important that every single time we do go ahead and add a release of information in HMIS for balance of state projects. Maricopa users will not have to do this in HMIS. Well, I'll just add my information here. And now we have a current release of information on file, allowing us to share their data in HMIS. Now we'll go to the entry exit, and this is where we actually enter the client into the program. So this client has no previous program, so click Add Entry Exit to add our clients to our program. At the top, we'll want to make sure that our entire household is included, so I'll just check every member of the household. And I want to use the type as VA. Now I want to double check provider and project start date to make sure they're correct, and they should match our EDA and our backdate modes. I just want to reiterate that the type for veterans projects should be VA. This is essential for reporting purposes because the VA does have repository uploads, and having the type of VA helps ensure the data is correct and the data is uploaded correctly. If it is not, some of the data may be missing and may not be associated with the repository upload. So let's click Save and Continue now that we're complete on this page. Okay. Okay, and as you can see, we have the series of assessments up top here. Now, just as a note, your assessment area may look different depending on your agency. This is a standard workflow that works very well for ensuring that everything is ordered, but your agency may have a different setup and a different preference in how their assessments are ordered. Everything that we cover here, all the data elements will be present, but they may be present on different assessments by different names. If you have any questions about that, please refer to your agency and they can assist with the proper assessment order. For now, we'll just cover the elements that we have here. So we'll start with the universal data entry element. universal data elements. These fields have all been pre-filled out for the sake of expediency, but we'll just touch on a couple of questions that are important for veterans projects. So for SSVF programs, the relationship to head of household, the head of household must be the veteran. There can be other adults in the household, but the head of household must be a veteran. It is necessary for eligibility to the program. Additionally, date of birth and gender for SSVF programs must be completed. The options client doesn't know and client refused are not valid options for VA grant funded participants. So the gender and date of birth must always be completed in full. Client doesn't know and client refused are not acceptable. But once you put the information there, you just click save, and all other amounts will remain the same as in the introductory training. You want to make sure that all this information is accurate for the other people in the household as well. All right, then we'll move on to the program data elements. Once again, we want to make sure that all this information is filled out. And this has all been pre-populated for the training for the sake of expediency. Now, I'm currently on the veterans profile here, and there are a couple of notes for SSVF programs that are important. So the first is that for income, any option of client doesn't know or client refused are not acceptable responses. In SSVF programs, eligibility is based on income, and therefore this information must be provided. SSVF programs do not have to collect income from minors, only from adults and head of households. Alright, let's go down here, and we have everything saved here. All information on this page will complete it just as it is in the introductory series. And now that we see our universal data elements and our program data elements are complete. So the difference starts coming at the SSVF program assessment where we have SSVF specific questions. So let me jump to that assessment here. Okay, so we're currently on the head of households profile or the veterans profile. Now I'll answer the questions here. So first, we'll want to listen and look at the headers to see when we complete each question. So this says complete the questions below, only at initial entry into the program. So let's go ahead and start. Now, percentage of AMA, this field records the household income compared to the area median income. You just want to select the appropriate option from the drop-down. You also want to complete the VAMC station number. There's just a drop-down list, and so you want to make sure that you just use the drop-down option that is most correct for your project. So let's take a quick look here. Phoenix, Arizona here. All right, excellent. These questions only have to be answered for the veteran. They do not have to be answered for the other additional members in the household. Okay. We also want to complete the veteran's information, which is a little sub-assessment, getting more information about the veteran's service history. To complete it, you'll simply click Add. Now before we continue, we'll just go ahead and indicate that this only needs to be collected for veterans in the household. So if the veteran has a spouse who's also a veteran, you'd also collect this information from the spouse. But if their spouse, for example, is not a veteran, you would not record this information for the spouse. But in short, veteran information only has to be collected from veterans. So we're just going to go ahead and enter this information here. And then we're going to answer whether or not the client was present in any of these arenas. Combat is not required, just physical presence in the area in order to indicate that a yes answer here. So let's go and complete this information. If your client was a part of multiple military branches, for discharge status, you would take the highest discharge status or the best status. There's a lot more information about each of these options in the questions in the packets associated with the SSVF training. But once you're complete filling out this information, just simply click Save, and that information is entered here. You also want to complete client's residence, last permanent address. This is only required from the head of household as well. So we'll click to Add, and we'll simply fill out the information. And we'll complete as much information as possible so that we have a good way to contact the client. and you'll see that the fields that are absolutely required are definitely bolded and have an asterisk next to them. And you want to fill out as much information as possible, simply for making it more convenient for the program to verify income, status, previous address history, and so forth. But I'll save this for now. And this one is pretty self-explanatory as well. And those questions, like I said, only have to be completed at the entry into the project. Now, when we look at the next header here, it says complete the following question at entry and exit only. So we'll complete the last grade completed, since this is the entry. And we'll note that this will be collected for all members of the household, or all adults in the household. Minors do not have to have this information collected for them. And the final question is connection with SOAR. You want to update this question every time there's an actual update. So in this case, we'll say that the client is not connected with a SOAR, but if next time they did, in fact, have a connection with SOAR because they started a case management plan to get connected with these benefits, you would flip the answer to yes. But anytime there's an actual change to this answer, you would simply change it to the appropriate answer. So this can be updated anytime. So we'll click Save here. And this will be collected for all adults in the household as well. So we see that there's a yellow check mark, seeing that only part of our household has completed this assessment. So I'll jump to the spouse. And since the spouse is not a veteran, I won't have to complete this information about the veteran's information or the client's last residence. But I'll have to complete these two questions about the last grade completed, as well as the connection with SOAR. Okay, and once you're done there, you'll click Save. And you'll see our check mark turn green here. Now, there are two types of SSVF projects, and some SSVF projects are homeless prevention projects. If you're a homeless prevention project, you'll also want to complete the SSVF HP targeting criteria assessment. If you're a rapid rehousing project, you can skip over this assessment as it's not required for your project. Now, this is only to be completed for the head of household. So right now I'm in the spouses, so I don't need to complete it there. So I'll just click Save, and I'll jump to the veterans profile instead. Now, there are 19 questions on this, which are based off of the SSVF Homelessness Prevention Stage 2 Targeting Criteria Screening. The data entered into this assessment should be based on this screening, which should be completed ahead of time. Please refer to your agency for more information on this screening. So you would simply fill out the appropriate answers based on what they had selected in their previous screening. So I'm just going to select these quickly and somewhat at random just for explanatory purposes. But the real essential item here is that these aren't questions that you'll be asking in HMIS. These are questions you'll be asking of your client ahead of time, and you'll simply be documenting what the answers are in HMIS. Now, the final two questions, the first one, the HP applicant total points, this field will also be based on the SSVF Homelessness Prevention Stage 2 targeting criteria, which you have completed previously. So you'll enter the appropriate answer there. And the grantee targeting threshold score, this score is dependent on your area and your SSVF program. In short, this is what compares your program or your applicant to other applicants in the area. You want to refer to your own agencies to see what these scores are, because it may differ based on the year, based on the program, and based on the area. But once you're done there, you'll simply click Save, and it'll be complete with that as well if you are a homeless prevention program. We also have a custom assessment, and you can see one or multiple custom assessments. These would be specific to your agency solely. We won't cover this in this training, since this training does cover only the basic SSVF required standards and not agency specific standards. But now that we're done, we'll click Save and Exit, and we're back here. All right, perfect. So we'll also want to go ahead and record service transactions for our clients in SSVF programs. Recording service transactions and financial assistance is required for SSVF programs. So we're going to click on Add Service here. And if you have any questions about adding services or referrals, or anything on this page here, you'll want to refer back to the case management training. For this particular training, we're just going to cover the specific items for SSVF and not the entire workflow in detail. But let's start by clicking Add Service. Okay, you want to make sure for the services that you include any household members that's relevant to. You want to make sure that start date and end date are correct, and you'll then select the service type. So we'll take a quick look here. Right, I want to say we have material mental health assessment and treatment. We'll click Save and Continue. So the workflow for this page is mostly the same as any other service transaction. The main difference is that there's a few additional boxes for SSVF programs. Now, there's type of SSVF service, and there's SSVF financial assistance type. You'll only complete either the top question or the bottom two questions. You'll not complete all three at the same time. The type of SSVF service and the SSVF financial assistance type are separate data elements. So for this case, I'm going to indicate that this was just a SSVF service. We'll take case management services. Then you'll complete the service costs as applicable, as well as the funding sources as applicable, which wouldn't occur for the SSVF service. And then you complete the need information as closed and fully met. And then you click Save. And I'll save and exit. And we see our service appear here. So I'll click back to Dashboard. Now I'm going to click Add another service. And this time I'm going to add a service of rent payment assistance. We'll click Save and Continue. So as I said previously, you'll either add an SSVF service here, or you'll add the bottom two. Every single time you add a transaction for an SSVF program, a service transaction, you will want to complete either this question or the set of questions as well. These fields are required for SSVF programs and need to be completed. So in this case, I have rent payment assistance, so I'm going to record a SSVF financial assistance type. And here I have rental assistance. And I'll simply put the amount of the rental assistance. And then I'm going to actually add the funding source as well. And the funding source is required for SSVF programs. And also indicate where the funding came from. And I'm also going to indicate how much the funding was for. I press Calculate there. Perfect. And then finally, I'll complete the need information as closed and fully met, just as I would with any other service transaction. Perfect. We'll go back to our dashboard. And there's actually one more item that I want to cover in the services. So let me click Add Service. In this case, I'm going to add another service. Let's take a quick look here. Let's go with material goods. We'll click Save and Continue. Now, I'll read it a third time and be as redundant as I can. You'll complete the SSVF service type or the SSVF financial assistance type. Now, in some situations, depending on what you pick, you may have another drop-down appear. So let's take a quick look. Let's say I add assistance obtaining VA benefits. You'll suddenly see that there's a second drop-down that did appear related to what I answered here. If I selected direct provision of other public benefits, you'd also have a dependent drop-down here. So it's just something to be aware of, that depending on what type of service you add, you may have a second drop-down, and it'll indicate very clearly that the drop-down is related to whatever your selection was. In this case, I'd fill out these top two fields and leave the bottom two fields blank. So just something to look out for, that your screen may change depending on your answers. But we'll cancel this service transaction as it was just an explanatory item. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the home page, and let's change our backdate. Let's just change it to the first of the current year. We'll set our backdate. And from the program, so I'll jump to their profile and jump to their entry exit program, and we'll click the pencil next to exit date to exit them from the program. Now we want to make sure that we include every member who's exiting from the program and make sure they're leaving the program. Now, if the veteran is leaving from the program, then the entire household must also leave from the program. It is okay, it is possible for a member of the household who is not the veteran to leave, but you cannot leave a member in the project if the veteran is not present. Then we'll complete the reason for leaving, as well as the destination, both of which are covered in more detail in the introductory series. We'll click Save and Continue. So now we have a universal exit assessment. You'll want to make sure that any information here is completed, including disabilities, health insurance, non-cash benefits, and monthly income. We also want to go to the SSVF program assessment and make sure that the questions here are also answered or changed if there is actually a change. So complete the following questions at entry and exit only. So we'll want to just review. If this answer is still correct, you would simply leave it there. And we want to make sure that if this answer changed from a no to yes, for example, we just simply flip that to a yes, and we click Save to record that we did go ahead and review this assessment. We'd also do that for the other household member as well. Remember, these were blank because they're not a veteran. And we just reconfirm that these answers are still accurate. If they are, we simply click Save. And you can also go ahead and make sure that if you have agency custom assessments, that those are also correct. But once you're completed with all the assessments, you'll click Save and Exit. And the client's exited from the program. That covers the basic workflow for SSVF programs. We appreciate you watching and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.